One day, while watching sheep, Moses saw something amazing. Exodus 3:2-4 describes it. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses, who saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses, and Moses said, Here I am. God told Moses. He had heard the cries of his people in Egypt and was going to rescue them. Exodus 3:10 shows God's plan. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Moses was afraid and made excuses, but God promised to be with him and even let his brother Aaron help him speak. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and demanded that he let God's people go. Exodus 5:1-2 records this first meeting. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, Let my people go, so that they may hold a festival to me in the wilderness. Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Instead of letting them go, Pharaoh made their work even harder. So God sent 10 terrible plagues on Egypt to show his power. The Nile River turned to blood, frogs covered the land, gnats swarmed everywhere, flies filled the houses, livestock died, painful boils broke out on people, hail destroyed crops, locusts ate what was left, and darkness covered the land for 3 days. Each time a plague came, Pharaoh would promise to let the Israelites go, but when it stopped, he would change his mind. Finally, God announced the worst plague of all. Exodus 11:4-5 describes it. So Moses said, This is what the Lord says. About midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh, who sits on the throne, to the firstborn son of the female slave, who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. But God provided a way for the Israelites to be protected. Exodus 12:12-13 explains, On that same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down the firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. Each family had to kill a perfect lamb and put its blood on their doorframes. They cooked the lamb and ate it with unleavened bread, ready to leave quickly. That night the angel of death passed through Egypt. But when he saw the blood, he passed over those houses. Exodus 12:29-30 tells what happened. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. Pharaoh finally let them go, and the Israelites left Egypt that very night after 430 years of living there. About 2 million Israelites left Egypt with their flocks and herds, but God didn't lead them the shortest way to the Promised Land. Exodus 13:17-18 explains why. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert road toward the Red Sea. God guided them with a special sign. Exodus 13:21-22 describes it. By day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel by day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people, but soon they faced a terrible problem. Pharaoh changed his mind about letting them go and chased after them with his entire army. Exodus 14:9-10 tells us, the Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped by the sea near Pi-hahiroth, opposite Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians, marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. The people were trapped between the Egyptian army and the Red Sea. They panicked and blamed Moses for bringing them out to die in the desert. But Moses trusted God completely. Exodus 14:30-14 records his response. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then God did something incredible. Exodus 14:21-22 describes the miracle. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians followed them into the sea, but when all the Israelites were safely across, God told Moses to stretch out his hand again. Exodus 14:27-28 shows what happened. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. The Israelites were amazed at God's power and sang songs of praise. But their joy didn't last long. 3 days later, they couldn't find water, and when they did find some, it was too bitter to drink. They complained to Moses, and God showed him how to make the water sweet. This became a pattern in the desert. When they ran out of food, they complained, so God sent quail in the evening and manna every morning except the Sabbath. Exodus 16:14-15 describes this miracle food. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." When they needed water again, God told Moses to strike a rock with his staff, and water poured out. When enemies attacked them, Moses held up his hands and they won the battle. Every need was met, but the people kept complaining and wanting to go back to Egypt. 3 months after leaving Egypt, the Israelites came to Mount Sinai. This was where God had first spoken to Moses from the burning bush, and now he was going to give them his laws. Exodus 19:3-6 records God's message. Then Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, "This is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob, and what you are to tell the people of Israel. You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." The people agreed to obey God, so he told them to prepare for something amazing. For 3 days they washed their clothes and got ready. On the 3rd day, something incredible happened. Exodus 19:16-18 describes it. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it, like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. God called Moses up the mountain and gave him the 10 Commandments. Exodus 21:17 lists these basic rules for living. Worship only God. Don't make idols. Don't misuse God's name. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Honor your parents. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't steal. Don't lie about others. And don't want what belongs to someone else.